My colleague Mark Swain and I represent the community of Lancefield, which is perceived very much as a sleepy, bucolic, fringe community, and it's regarded very much as an affluent community. However, I think as policymakers representing that community, it behoves us to be very much aware of this kind of information, because families and their children are the individuals, the community members that are going to ensure the continuity of our community. They're the people who are going to ensure that we continue to thrive. And Lancefield is not without its pockets of impoverished families, despite our general perceptions. And I think it's certainly incumbent on us as councillors to be constantly aware of that and factoring that into our decisions and looking at ways that we can support those families, all of our families, but particularly those children who come from impoverished backgrounds. Things like housing, parks and recreational facilities. We're a very tiny, tiny community with very, very small resources. So we have to make very careful decisions that support all of our community, not just those who have what they need. Thanks for having us.
Thank you very much, and I know that there's lots of data in that report, and Dr. Hasselbeck provided a great overview of that, but at the moment I think there may be questions or comments, and there's lots of expertise in this room, people that work every day on these issues, so if you have questions, this would be a good time. We can do that while the website's being brought up, etc. So let's open the floor. So if there's any questions.
I have a question about the timeline. So this information is as of 2013, is that correct?
So Daryl, the information is the most recent that's available from a variety of different sources.
Okay.
And one of the cautions in interpreting any of this is that some of it is previous year, 2013, 2014. Some of it we're looking back as far as 2011. So depending on the actual data element itself, the dates don't align, but it is our most recent available information.
And it's shown big decline in a lot of areas. Okay.
Now, one of the good advantages we have is that while it isn't all at the same time, we can at least make comparisons between previous information. So when we're talking trends, the trends are what we have, whether it's 2006 to 11 or even 2013 or 2014.
So each category is compared.
It's comparable
Within
itself.
Okay. Right. So, Dr. Hasselbeck, I'd like to ask you, of all of these bits of data, all the information that's come out, what to you is the most concerning, that needs to be addressed first, top priority?
That's a tough one. I think that's what we need collectively to come together, and that's what the World Cafe will focus some attention on, is what are the priorities here. There is some incredible expertise sitting in this room. Not any one person can address all that, but what's more important is that each person in this room address what they can see as their top priority. When we do that, we'll get the sort of impact that we're looking for that'll make things better for kids. And that might sound like a bit of a cop-out, but that's the reality.
Okay, now we've already heard, obviously, I mean, these were opposition members that stated this, but I saw some very serious concern from in the statements that were made today. Not what I would describe as normal political rhetoric. If we have a government, and it appears that we do, that's not willing to address this problem, what do we do?
I think that's a good question for the politicians. I do respect Minister Stilwell's representative is here.
It's unfortunate he's not here today.
But you know, the office is represented, and you know, I think that one of the things that we can all do, okay, we actually don't have all the councils here either, is if we all start focusing on kids first, some of our decisions would be a lot simpler. Let's just start there.
If I can add to that, Joe, one thing we can do is focus on what it is we're able to do. So while we may wish that the provincial government had a child poverty strategy, as other provinces do, in the absence of one of those, we're going to make one for Nanaimo, and that's part of the work that we do. In the absence of a national childcare strategy or a provincial childcare strategy, we're going to take steps that we can do here in Nanaimo to improve access to affordable childcare for low-income families. So, short of having national and provincial support for specific objectives, we're really going to focus on what we can do for Nanaimo kids within our own means, with our own resources.
Thank you.
So the last report came out in 2013. Do you know what key things have been done since then to improve child poverty in Nanaimo, or to help child poverty in Nanaimo?
I'm going to say from a policy perspective, I think that we're still in that phase of 2013 was a bit of a shock when first information came out. I've seen a lot of people focusing a lot of attention, and Mr. Horn is identifying some of what the City of Nanaimo is doing. Certainly the Early Years Partnership during that time has revisited the strategic plan, developed the plan, and is now beginning to implement that. Priority areas have been identified. There has been an increase in specific programming targeted often to groups that are at greatest need. I would say most of that has just been in the last year, which means we're not even going to recoup the benefits of that when we're looking at data of this nature at this point in time. It's probably going to take a lot more work and a lot more time to see those benefits as well. So
I would add that one thing that parents identified when we spoke to them was sometimes there's help available or support's available, but they just don't know that that's available to them. So one of our main objectives was to create an information hub, so to speak, for parents to access so they can seek out the supports they're going to need to be successful. Amber will be covering that in a couple of minutes, and because we're, it's 2015, it's web-based, and so that'll be, I think, a really helpful step for many parents who can now begin to access not just supports, but also play groups and the sort of recreational and leisure side of parenting. So that's one of the things, the steps we've taken is to provide that for parents, a place they can come and see what's available to them in their community. And we'll leave that to Amber to extrapolate on,
And what's the benefit of pulling all this information in one report?
It allows us to monitor our progress, partly. So it's a report card for us, and as you heard from Dr. Hasselback, some areas we're gaining ground and some areas we're losing. So it's two tools, one for the professionals in the community who are working with children every day to understand how we might configure our programs and our services, and two for policymakers to understand what kind of changes would benefit children and families and how we might do that. So, and us for as a community, as the general citizen, just to get a sense of where we're at and what direction we're going in these specific areas.
It's a tool for individuals who can pick one up on the way out to start a conversation or take to a meeting or bring up within their circle of influence.
I just wanted to speak to the Aboriginal piece. I run their early programs for the organization, and the Ministry of Children and Families did put out a very large chunk of millions of dollars for Aboriginal service innovations, and a few key agencies picked up that funding, and it's provided a wealth of programs and resources in the Aboriginal community specifically, and also the Success by Six has an Aboriginal engagement piece as well that's being used, I believe, the numbers for the children at risk in the Aboriginal communities have climbed since 2013 as a direct result, so I just wanted to
I support that. And I think everyone's hesitant to sort of say, okay, the government's doing a good job. On the other hand, I have seen in the last couple of years some real efforts being put into expanding childcare opportunities and training. The early years centers initiatives that are underway, revision of the early years networks. There's all sorts of good things that are occurring. Interestingly, not put together as a single package that sort of promotes that effort. So it's activities of this, not just here, but in other communities in the province, I actually think are starting to make some change.
It's also bursary dollars going into training students to go out and work in the communities with higher level of professionalism.
Ms. Neary?
Thank you. I have a question around coordination and integration of services between all the different agencies that are out there that provide services to support families, and particularly children. Since 2013, can you speak to what progress has been made towards improving that? Because very often it is perceived, particularly across the community, that lots of agencies are working hard and they're working in silos. They find it difficult to cross-reference and connect with each other and make sense of the big picture, where the gaps are, where individual agencies can step up and fill the gaps and so on. So I'm wondering what kind of progress, if any, has been made in our community towards achieving that.
Yeah, we're making great progress. So as I said before, the Greater Nanaimo Early Years Partnership is made up of 70 individuals, over 45 organizations here in Nanaimo, and we meet regularly. We undertook a big community consult in 2014, and it was very robust. We really looked at what our community needed, what our partnership needed, what changes needed to be done, and then we flew from there. We changed the structure of our partnership and the focuses of our partnership. Now we have, as I said in my speech, 3 working groups that are looking at communication and barrier reduction, cultural engagement, and public policy. And these are very active groups, as well as I will give a presentation in a minute about, our website is a humongous great thing that we have done here to help out the families here in Nanaimo and in Nanaimo, because we're hearing that they don't know where to go for the one-stop shop. So as a partnership, we have definitely been working hard and coming far, for sure.
I just wanted to add something, because a lot of what has to happen now is going to be around coordination, and you were referring to that, but that takes some planning, and planning takes time. It's very challenging when you actually look at the people that are at the table. A lot of us are community organizations, and so capacity becomes a big, big issue. So right now, the idea of getting the website up and running and looking at it from a communications perspective to make people aware, so that we actually have a message to send out and to support our garner. Until we do that, it's going to be very difficult. Otherwise, we're going to say it's always got to be government that's got to solve the problems. And I really appreciate John's comments around how we're trying to look at local solutions.
And just this young gentleman over here had his hand up a couple times.
Oh,
And wait, was it me? No, okay.
no worries.
Yeah, I just didn't want nobody to go on.
Yeah, sometimes it's hard to see. Any other questions or comments? Should we let Amber have that? Sorry, Sydney, go ahead.
I just want to say, to acknowledge that, yes, there's public policy, but you can vote with your dollars and make a donation. And I mean, I see around the room that the child development center doing amazing work, telephone doing amazing work. Obviously many agencies that lead on to you in a way, so you can vote in one way, but you can also vote with your dollars. And I know telephone in particular has done a lot of great work around preventing pregnancies and helping educate young people in the 9, 10, 11-year-olds now that are working with to try and help the next generation. So I think there's the glass is half full, and that there's a great network of social service agents, people on the ground doing good work, and now's the time to make it before the end of your tax receipts. So he's just one of those great charities in this room.